All right, welcome back to One True Podcast. With me, as always, is Zach Smith. Zach, you doing okay?
Oh, it's great. I feel like these are few and far between after a win. And it's just, I know we're not supposed to root. We certainly don't. But vibes are a little bit higher in Waco.
Ah, yes. No doubt. I don't think that the homecoming crowd would have been quite as large if Baylor had gone out to Lubbock and laid an egg, but they didn't. We'll break down all of that and a little more with our special guest, Berry Tramel of the Tulsa World. It still sounds a little strange to say that, but Berry, has covered Oklahoma sports for a long, long time. Berry, how long has it been?
46 years. I think this is my 47th football season. Got hired at the Norman Transcript as a high school senior in 1978.
Nice.
My first OU football game I ever covered was the 79 season opener, Oklahoma, Iowa. Hawkeyes had a redshirt freshman safety named Bob Stoops who was out there trying to tackle Billy Sims. So
wow.
That's how far I go back.
Nice. Oh man. Billy Sims in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame and probably the Texas Sports Hall of Fame as well. Great Sooner there. But we're talking Cowboys today. OU's in the the SEC now.
Big time in us.
Yeah, it's so strange. So, guys, we do have Baylor and Oklahoma State on Saturday at McLean Stadium in Waco. So both the Bears and Cowboys have had disappointing seasons. But Baylor did take a step forward last week in Lubbock. The Bears stunned Texas Tech. I'm still kind of stunned. 59-35. That was what was so stunning about it, was just the way it played out. But meanwhile, Oklahoma State, still the only Big 12 team without a conference win. And these guys were in the Big 12 championship game a year ago. So it may sound weird to even ask this, but has Mike Gundy passed Dave Aranda on the hot seat heat meter? What do you think, Barry?
Oh, well, it's hot. His seat is not hot. I mean, in a lot of ways, Gundy's a made man in Stillwater. I mean, he's an institution, been around longer than Pistol Pete, and the greatest coach in school history and all that kind of stuff. And so he's not in any danger of being fired. But people are pretty disgusted with what's clearly a disappointed season. And, they picked third, I think, but it was a tight, Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State right there at the top, bundled together. And now they're 0-4 in the league and just haven't played very well. They did play a lot better Friday night at Brigham Young. Should have probably beaten BYU. So they sort of like Baylor, they're sort of an uprising and looked a lot better, but they've just got a lot of problems. So, questioning of Gundy's coaching staff, all the things everybody, goes on at every school when you have a year like this. But the thing about Gundy is he's sort of been through this kind of thing before and always brought him out the other side. So people aren't really demanding a coaching change. They're just frustrated at what they see this year.
I mean, he's the elder statesman of Big 12 coaches. I mean, in terms of tenure at his school.
You know what, hey, Brice, he's actually 3 weeks less than Kyle Whittingham. Kyle Whittingham, I mean, Utah's now in the Big 12. I mean, it's hard to keep track. But, it was the dangest thing. They were hired 3 weeks apart.
Okay. There you
go. 20 years later, they rank 2 and 3 in the nation, behind only Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. So,
it's funny when these new schools come in and we, I guess they're obviously his tenure is longer, but certainly Gundy's been around the Big 12 a lot longer. But.
Yeah, he can find his way to Manhattan, Kansas. I don't know that Kyle Whittingham can.
Right,
so
right.
He just hopes the plane lands where it's supposed to. But
yeah,
Gundy. And of course, Gundy. The cool thing about Gundy is he wears his hair long, he acts goofy. So sometimes you forget how old he is. I mean, this guy goes back to he's taking snaps as a freshman quarterback in 1986.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he didn't miss Billy Sims by that much. So that's
Yeah.
the thing about Gundy. He's the all-time leading passer in Big Eight history.
Wow.
So, he's had an unbelievable career. But yeah, we got so many new people. I tell people, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I still can't get my head around it. We got a 16 team Big 12. Half the league was not in the league
Right.
15 months ago.
Right.
This isn't the Big 12.
Welcome to college football in 2024. I mean,
This is not the Big 12. It's just a new league, and they use the Big 12 name. Why, I don't know. I'd get a new one, but
Yeah.
You got Arizona and Colorado and Central Florida and Cincinnati. Baylor hadn't played at Cincinnati yet, have they?
They did last year.
Yeah.
They won there last year.
The Sooners went up there last year, and I went, wasn't that the coolest setting? I thought that was. I mean, I'm used to going to these college towns. Baylor, K-State, Iowa State, and they got these cool stadiums, but they're sort of set out, with some space around them. And I mean, I know you got the river in Waco, which is really cool, but all of a sudden you go to Cincinnati and you got this big city and a big urban campus, and they carved out 100 years ago, they carved out this little place for a football field, and now they got a stadium that's like 50 steps from the student union.
Built into it, actually.
Yeah, and then the whole thing, it's just, and it sits up there, you can stand on the hill and look down. I thought that was the coolest setting I'd been to in a long time at Nippert Stadium.
Yeah.
So I like the new look Big 12. I mean, I like new things. I like the different locales and all that stuff, but sometimes it's just hard to remember, hey, this is, Brigham Young is in the Big 12, Texas is not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird.
Florida, not Nebraska, is in the Big 12. It's just strange.
Yeah, it is.
The branding is a bit weird. Like, what was it? Vince Young, I think, is going in the SEC Hall of Fame or something this weekend. Something crazy like that.
It's the same way. Yeah, every school is doing some sort of Hall of Fame something. I forgot what it was. Switzer's going is the honoree for OU.
Wow.
I don't even know. They didn't even play SEC teams. And, OU's got 3 games this year against teams, schools they've never even played. They've never been to Oxford, Auburn, or Ole Miss. Never played there one time.
Yeah.
Last week played South Carolina. They'd never played them anywhere. So it's strange.
It is. It's different for sure.
It's weird. It's weird.
Zach, we talked about it on Saturday, but Dave Aranda certainly helped his cause with that win the other day. I mean, I would say he dialed down the heat a little bit.
And maybe everybody, every time I am asked about Baylor or whatever, it's always Dave Aranda's hot seat status. And that win certainly cooled it a little bit, but from what I've heard the last few days, maybe it was hotter for an in-season change than we originally thought about, and I think that win and what happened at Texas Tech, the players certainly wanted to win for Dave Aranda, and they had that on their mind that if they don't win this game, this coaching staff it's going to be tough to keep them around, and they didn't want that. And I think that there were, rumblings that he was more on the hot seat than I guess even I originally thought. So I still think he's more on the hot seat than Mike Gundy. You mentioned it, they went to the Big 12 title game last year. I think that buys him some time. He's been there for 20 years, like we've talked about. I don't think he's going anywhere unless it's his decision. But Dave Aranda, certainly it was a step in the right direction, but there's more work to do, and can they do it? We shall see.
Yeah, Barry called him a made man. I like that. So, Barry, what has been the issue with these Cowboys? I mean, and can they get it corrected? They got, 3 wins on the year? Can they win 3 more and get to a bowl game?
Well, they got 5 games left, and frankly, all 5 games are close to toss-ups. I mean, they could go to Waco and win on Saturday. They host Tech. They could win that game. Who else they got? They got Arizona State comes to town. They could win. They go to Colorado. Buffs are actually playing pretty good. That might be their toughest game. But the 5 games, they could win any of them. And they could also lose them all. It's a crazy year in the Big 12 where everybody is, BYU, Iowa State are at the top, and nobody saw that coming. But they've been very poor in the running game. They built their success last year around Ollie Gordon. This year they can't block anybody, can't get the run game going, and the passing game has dissipated until last week at Brigham Young, and they added the quarterback run element, started a new quarterback, Garrett Rangel, really kick-started the offense. Then he breaks his collarbone in the last couple minutes of the second quarter. Alan Bowman has to come back in, but he runs the new game plan. And I mean, he runs like he's got a piano on his back, but he still had, he's still making a few runs. So the game plan was fabulous, and that worked. Can they build off that? I mean, it'd take Dave Aranda, 11 seconds to drop a scheme to stop it. So they're going to have to do something different. But at least they showed they can. And the defense has just been leaking more and more holes. But they got a lot of players that have won. They beat Arkansas early in the year. Arkansas has proven to be a pretty good team. The Razorbacks beat Tennessee. So they've done some things, but they just can't really seem to find the mojo they had last year.
Yeah.
They looked lifeless against West Virginia. Has Baylor played West Virginia?
No, they go to their 2 or 3 weeks from now.
3 weeks, yeah.
Mountaineers are an okay team, nothing special, and they came to Stillwater and just whacked OSU. OSU played Utah tough and hung with K-State good chunk of the day, but West Virginia just dominated them. So who knows what you're going to see. On defense, their problem is their 2 best players have been out, and then the third best player, Trey Rucker, was gone in BYU. He didn't make that trip either. So they're beat up on defense pretty bad. So I think Baylor should be in position to score. I don't know that OSU can win this game 20-17. I think OSU is going to have to win it 35-31, 38-35, like that. I think Baylor is going to be able to score if they play anything like they did on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny how fast it can turn because, for Baylor, I mean, they were way over here in the slow lane, headed to 3-9, and then, in one day, they're over here in the HOV lane just cruising along. And I mean, Zach and I are thinking they're going bowling for sure now. They've got 5 left, 2, Zach, and have to win 3.
But they've got Houston and Kansas and some teams that are kind of near the bottom for good reasons, that don't have the talent of Oklahoma State. So
yeah, indeed. I thought the Tech win bought them some wiggle room.
Absolutely.
So guys, in terms of just press conference styles, Mike Gundy and Dave Aranda could not be more different. Those guys are on 2 ends of the spectrum. So as writers, my question is, what kind of a coach do you prefer? Do you like the animated, colorful guy, or do you, is there something to the sort of subdued, thoughtful, introspective kind of presser that you would get with Dave Aranda? Barry?
Well, here's what I tell people. There's a few things in my life that I'll pick up a sword and fight to the death over. My family, people who, the underdog people, marginalized people who need help. There's things I'm passionate about. I'll pick up a sword over anybody that's trying to take a Mike Gundy press conference away from me. It must be there, for crying out loud. And I'm hard pressed to think he's getting my word better every week or every year. It's crazy. As coaches getting more and more guarded, Gundy's thrown his filter away. Gundy's idea of a filter is say, well, You want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to lie to you? And then he's like, tell us the truth, and he says, okay. That's his filter.
Yeah.
So we love it. It's great. I mean, he'll just tell you, the classic example. Colin Oliver, their good linebacker, got hurt early in the year in this transfer from a D2 school in Pennsylvania. Isiago is played okay. And so on Monday, they said, tell us, how'd you get Isiago? And he said, well, you want the truth? And we said, yes. And he said, we could afford him.
Right.
So that's how we got him. What do you mean how we got him? We had, I don't know if he gave us a number. He said, but we had a little bit of money to spend, and that's what that money would buy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wish he said, he'll just say, it's all we're buying players. We're paying players. We got, and, you can't get, some coaches will step into that a little bit. Chris Kleiman, he did a podcast with me earlier this year, and I asked him about, the Will Howard, Avery Johnson dilemma they had. They had two quarterbacks, a veteran, a young guy, and they decided, Will Howard was thinking, well, what do I do? And they said, well, basically they said, it sounds like USC and Ohio State want you. Go on, and good luck, and we'll go with Avery Johnson. I asked him, Chris Kleiman, about that, and Chris was, Chris is not flamboyant. He's not Mike Gundy, but he did say, you can't pay two quarterbacks. You can only pay one these days. That's all you can afford. And every once in a while, you'll get a coach to admit something like that. Mm-hmm. But mostly they still want to talk in guarded ways, and they don't really want to come open the absolute truth. Gundy just does.
Yeah.
Said, we're paying players. I mean, he'll talk about recruiting and said, well, in the old days when you recruited guys, and tried to talk to them about development and stuff. He said, of course, we don't do that now. We just talk money. So, he just tells it straight. So we're blessed in Oklahoma because we don't have two of those guys, but we got one. And he's just wonderful. Now, Dave Aranda, I have not spent much time around Dave other than Big 12 media days. I mean, I really, I'm an old man. I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. I need to get some recordings of Dave Aranda because he's got the most soothing voice I've ever heard. And he's talking about stuff that's generally interesting. Football. I've heard him talk about defense and even running programs and stuff. And what he says is pretty interesting, but his voice is so low key and smooth.
Yes.
Really think he might help me fall asleep. And I don't mean in a boring way, just he's so soothing, like like the seashore or something, So,
We've had that comment here. It's very soothing, very sort of radio DJ kind of, not ever getting too high or too low. Zach, the irony here when Barry's sitting there talking about Gundy paying, talking about paying players. I think Aranda was the first guy to say that.
I mean, Baylor printed the shirts that say we play players. That's a Dave Aranda original right there.
Yeah.
You want to talk about,
That's the low key thing about Aranda is, yes, you could call him boring in terms of his press conference style or whatever, and he certainly gets in the weeds on the X's and O's. Holy crap. Barry, we don't know what the crap he's talking about most of the time, but but he is honest, and that we pay players t-shirt that emerged came from a Dave Aranda quote where he was asked, how are y'all doing so well in recruiting? And he said, we're paying players. I mean, so he is honest. He is honest.
Yeah. That's what I like about Dave Aranda. I like Dave Aranda, I think my personality and Dave's personality are the same. So I think I'm, attracted in that way. But, if you ask a question, like I asked about Ollie Gordon and the running game and all that, he's going to give you a detailed answer on kind of, why Ollie Gordon is struggling and what Oklahoma does. And like, it's not as fiery and bombastic as Gundy, but the meat of it is exactly what you want as a writer. And I think that is, that's great. You're not going to get the I'm a man, I'm 40 thing out of him, but it's Dave Aranda gives you what you need to do, and I know he doesn't appreciate our questions anymore, but I appreciate his answers.
Yeah, they coached that out of him. So Barry, he always used to. Last season, that became like a almost a meme. Was because Dave, one of his little verbal crutches was after you would ask a question, he would say, "I appreciate that question," and then he would answer the question. And so then they ended up after the season coaching that out of him because yes, as Zach says, he never appreciates our questions anymore.
And to your point about his voice, like
Yeah.
my wife came with me to a press conference. She had a day off, and so we decided to explore Waco or something. She came with me to a press conference, and we left the press conference, and she's like, "Man, I could just listen to Dave talk all day. Like this was great. Bring me to
Very
more of these."
soothing.
And
Very
I'm like,
soothing.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Now that I appreciate the question. That reminds me of Brett Yormark. If you remember, every time we ask Brett Yormark a question, he ends up answering it, but he always finishes by saying, "And thanks for your question."
Thanks for your question.
Thanks for your question.
Love it. Love it. Well, of course, we have had colorful quotes here in Waco. I mean, I am certainly thinking of former women's basketball coach that was here. She was from that Mike Gundy cloth, to say the least, as Barry
Wow.
knows.
Yeah. Well, she's funny. My favorite Kim story is, um, I compared her. I think it's the '07, '05, '09, somewhere big 12 tournament in Oklahoma City. Maybe it was '09. Anyway, I compared her to Cruella DeVille
Yep.
because she's always looking different. From one game to the next. She's like Seinfeld's girlfriend on that one episode. So I compared her to Cruella DeVille because I assume she knows this, but I know in Waco they loved her, and I assume they still do. Everywhere else, not so much.
Right.
So she's a villainess. There's not any question about that. But the thing I like about old Kim is she may not like it, but she has fun with it. Like the next day,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing something else. I may have been at the men's tournament. I can't remember what I was doing, but the guy from the Oklahoman asked a question at the press conference, and she said, "So you're from the Oklahoman?" He said, "Yeah." She said, "Where's Tramel?" She didn't want a piece of me.
The best part of that, though, Barry, because I was telling this very story yesterday at lunch, Zach was there, is she showed up in black and white
That's
for
right.
that game.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh,
And she's like,
great.
yeah, classic Kim. Yes, I could, as Zach knows, I could tell you a million Kim stories, but that would be a whole nother podcast, and it would probably be rated R. But so
Let me ask you a question.
yes,
Something I've always I've never asked anybody from Waco this. How much has she missed?
oh,
How much does I know the championships and all that. I know people love that and they love it, but is there a certain segment of maybe the administration or even the fan base, I suppose? Whew, that was awfully. That's a roller coaster, right?
yeah.
Is there an element that said, not that glad she's gone, but we're okay with that?
Kim, yes, to answer your question, yes, there absolutely is. I'm not, spilling any tea here that a lot of people don't know. I mean, here in Waco, the fans will always love her, and there's unfortunately for Nikki Collin, there's a pocket of fans that will probably never embrace her because she's not Kim,
Right.
And she probably knew that coming in, following a Hall of Famer, but yes, Kim was very controlling, and there are certainly people on the Baylor campus whose lives got a little easier when she went off
I'll
went
bet
off to
that's
Baton
right.
Rouge.
And of course, it didn't hurt. that old Scott won the NCAA championship, and of course
That was
Scott,
when she left. Yeah.
and then she leaves, and that made the departure a lot smoother. And of course, Scott's one of the all-time prince among men. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
that was sort of an interesting
It
dichotomy
was.
in Waco, Texas.
Yes, it was. So Barry, you wrote a column this week for the World a few days ago where you were talking about teams like Boise State and Navy and how they could be a real problem for the Big 12.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm worried. I'm
Yeah.
worried. I'm
Yeah. So
worried.
kind of break it down for us and for both of you guys, how likely is this scenario that Barry's about to break down to happen? I mean, what do you think?
Well, it's not likely, but it's possible. And here it is. We spent the last year talking about how the Big 12 can get multiple teams into the playoff because, virtually guaranteed one. And then because of politics, I'm up to here in SEC politics now, so I know quite a bit about it. So, can the second team in the Big 12 get in above the fifth team of the SEC or the fourth team of the Big 10, whatever it might be? But a doomsday scenario is at least on the horizon in which no Big 12 team gets in. And here it is. We got two mid-majors that are potential problems. Boise State has a pretty good resume, and it's going to get better. Boise State could finish 12-1, champion of the Mountain West, and their only loss is a 3-point loss at Eugene to Oregon, which now is number one and, is going to finish in the top 5 pretty easily. Boise State's just a classic model of the mid-major they like. And then you've got America's teams. Army and Navy are both unbeaten, both playing great, and they both have Notre Dame still on the schedule. If one of those, pray tell, both of them beat Notre Dame and go to the American Championship game, and the winner emerges at 12-0, I think there's a chance that Army-Navy winner under that scenario also could be pretty highly ranked. If the Big 12 champion ends up with 2 or 3 losses, now Iowa State, K-State, Brigham Young, right now they all combined have 1 loss. So if the Big 12 champ finishes at 12-1 or even 11-2, I don't think this will happen. But if K-State gets there at 6-3, or Iowa State stumbles down the stretch but still makes it to Arlington at 6-3, wins the game, all of a sudden you got a Big 12 champ that is 10-3. I don't think they're going to be ranked higher than Boise State. I don't think they're going to be higher than a 12-0 Army, maybe not even an 11-1 Army. And the playoff guarantees 5 conference champions making it. No stipulations on which conferences. Everybody thinks there is, but there's not. There's a scenario by which the Big 12 could be shut out of the college football playoff, which would be total disaster. Now, the OSU Brigham Young game, BYU scoring with 10 seconds left, that helped a lot. Iowa State coming back to beat Central Florida the other night, that helped a lot. That we're closer and closer to elite teams with elite records making it to Arlington. And if that happens, I'm the town crier. Don't listen to me. But
it's an interesting thought exercise.
It's out there. It's out there. Keep an eye on it. And you can't now. Friday night, Boise goes to UNLV. Cheer your head off for UNLV. They got a good team. They could win that game easily. If that happens, everybody can breathe. You can't cheer against Army-Navy. You just can't do it.
Right.
You got a soul. If you got a soul, you can't cheer against Army-Navy.
Right.
So it's a heart-wrenching situation. I mean, we're talking about Army and Navy for crying out loud. But that's a long, long shot,
Yeah.
but it's not impossible.
No, it's not.
Possible.
Zach?
And I think that I agree. I don't think that the Big 12 is going to get shut out of the playoff, especially with it being 12 teams now. But I think what's a way more valid and likely thing is that they get shut out from the top four seeds. Like
That's right.
Boise State having that one, if they finish 12-1, their only loss is to Oregon, that gives them a pretty good resume to, make it to the next round and have, BYU or Iowa State host SEC team number 3 or whatever it is. So I think the much more, likely scenario and the likely argument is, that 4 to 5 seed. And does Boise State hop or someone else hop the Big 12 for kind of that automatic bye? And so that's where I'm thinking of it. I think the Big 12 is going to get at least one team in, but it just, are they going to host a game? Are they going to have to host a game?
Yeah, it's been a problem for the Big 12 this year. I think that, and we've talked about it, Zach, that there's no real brand names anymore. And our BYU or our Iowa State, that's sexy of a team. Probably not so much in the national scene. Here's proof that your children are smarter than you are. So I have my firstborn is a sophomore at A&M. He's entrenched in SEC country. And he mentioned this thing that Barry's mentioned to me like way back in the start of the season. He was like, Navy and Army, they could be like, and he's like laying this out, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And here now it's, midway through the year and Barry's writing columns about it. So, I mean, that's pretty good foresight by
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
For an Aggie.
Yeah, for an Aggie, exactly.
I actually think it'd be cool if BYU or Iowa State didn't get one of the byes, but was able to host
Oh yeah, no doubt.
the 7 seed. I mean, my dream is like Miami, having to play at Ames, Iowa in mid-December. Now, pray a blue norther comes through and it's 22 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour winds. I like the cyclone chances. That would be a cool thing. This format, the idea of Southern teams having to go up, Ole Miss playing at Michigan in mid-December. Sign me up for that.
Yes.
There are lots of things I like about this new format, but there are going to be some tense times, I think, for the ACC and the Big 12.
Yeah, no doubt. In the 90s, wow, it's been a long time. I wrote a column where I was envisioning this scenario where aliens came down to Earth and you were explaining all the sports stuff to them. And then we got to college football and it was like trying to explain, so they don't have this playoff at the end of the year, And so I'm, however it looks, whoever's in it, I'm in because this has been a long time coming.
Our high school writer years ago, you know what he did? He said, let's just scrap the high school playoffs. Let's just go to bowl games. So let's have Jinx and Midwest City play in the McAllister Bowl. So, and then of course everybody said, well, that's stupid. That's nonsensical. And his point was, yeah, no
exactly. 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 Well, it should be fun to see how it all plays out. Barry, welcome to the family, the Lee Media family. I mentioned that to you.
Hey, I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Lee's been a great company to work for. I didn't know much about him until I joined the World, but the World's been great to me, and I've really enjoyed my Lee Enterprise journey. It's not real intrusive. It seems like the password requirements are fairly minimal. That's number one priority. Number two is the video, the HR videos I have to watch are not near as bad as my previous company.
There you go.
So there's lots to like about it. Lots to like about it.
That's good. I'll have to remember that when I'm doing my complaining. Thanks for hopping on and dropping some knowledge. Where will you be this weekend?
I'm going to Oxford, Mississippi. Ole Miss is hosting Oklahoma. The Sooners going to try to see if they can find the end zone, but I'm going to find the Grove. I got a lot better chance of finding the Grove than they do of finding the end zone. So never been to a game at Oxford, so looking forward to it. Miss hitting Waco this year. Always enjoy going down to the Brazos, and we were talking yesterday about the environments at Baylor. Well, I was sitting in the South Carolina Oklahoma post game Saturday, and the South Carolina it was before Shane Beamer got in, and the South Carolina writers I said, how does this post game, this visitors press conference area compare in the SEC? And one of the guys says, well, this is the best. This would be the best in the SEC, or it is the best. And I thought, well, this is sort of a cruddy old room. I mean, you guys have been there. It's sort of it's a big claw. It's big enough, but it's cluttered and all kinds of stuff. And they said, this is great. We got room. And I got to thinking, and they said the SECs are terrible. And I got to thinking, well, we got some pretty good post-game interviewing. The one at Baylor is the best in the league. I think it's really good setup.
It helps that it's newer, for sure.
Yeah. But, I mean, TCU's is brand new, and they got the worst.
That's true.
You're in the concourse under the boiler.
Yeah.
So, but no, I thought of Baylor just the other day because of that. So I'll miss going down there, but hopefully I can get down there the next time the Cowboys come.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming on, buddy.
All right. See you guys later.
All right. See you guys.